Every time I say DJ Pupusito, can we get an air horn in the background? And like pop some shades on me and just like a gif of a turntable just spinning. But instead of a turntable, they're pupusas. Hi, I'm El-Waylly, and today we're making pupusas. Pupusas come from El Salvador and Honduras. I worked with a cook from El Salvador and another cook from Honduras, and they would fight constantly about whose pupusas were superior. It's masa harina, or nixtamalized corn ground into a flour and dried, that is made into a dough with water, and then you fill it with all kinds of different fillings. My personal favorite is just a simple refried bean and cheese mixture. You griddle that until they're cooked on both sides and the center is molten, and then you eat that with salsa, and if you want to keep it tradish, they have it with this kind of vinegary coleslaw mixture known as curtido. And also, to have a little bit of fun, I'm gonna do another variation, which is a spin on one of my favorite quesadillas, which is a squash blossom and Oaxacan cheese quesadilla. So I'm gonna take that and shove that inside of a pupusa, which I'm sure will be delicious. Let's do this. We're about to make our bean filling for the pupusa. First things first, we're going to de-seed and finely dice our jalapeno. So you want to get in with the tip of your knife around the top where the stem would be, and you're cutting out all of that white pith and those seeds. And if you get your knife in at the right angle, it all comes out in one easy bit, and any leftover seeds that you may have, you can just tap them out. And then we're going to cut thin slices. Move down as you slice. To mince the garlic, thin slices all the way around, then you turn it and then do the same thing. And what you end up is with a grid sort of deal, so that when you cut across, you already have finely minced garlic without having to cut over it over and over and over again, because then your garlic changes in flavor. So I'm looking for minced garlic, not mashed garlic. But again, these are your refried beans. You can blend them for all I care. Just give that a once over, and that goes. And then we're gonna start preheating our pan. You wanna make sure that your pan, especially stainless steel, carbon steel, and cast irons, are sufficiently heated through to kind of get some kind of nonstick effect. Because if you go into a cold pan right now with really anything, it's probably gonna stick. All right, pan's hot, oil goes in. So you see how it immediately loosens and kind of just flies all over the place, and you get a little web in the middle, and it's really loose. That's how you know your pan's hot. You want that to happen as soon as you add your oil to the pan. And in we go with our jalapenos. Season that with a bit of salt. So we just want to cook this until the jalapeno is a little softened. It'll take a couple of minutes. So I want to push down on it. If it still feels crunchy, it needs a little bit more time. Okay, our jalapenos have softened, and we're going to go in with our cumin and our garlic. We just want to cook it enough so that we can smell it until you get like that wave of toasted cumin and toasting garlic. Ooh, I really smell that garlic and cumin. So we're going to go in with our beans. Hit it with a nice pinch of salt. And now we're going to go in with that potato masher, and then we're going to mash up our beans. If you don't have a potato masher, you can get in there with a fork. You just want to break up the beans. You don't want to go too crazy with the salt right now because you're still adding cheese to it. I'm going to taste it again once I mix the filling with the cheese and then re-season it if needed. So my refried beans go into this bowl to cool, because hot filling in a pupusa is not a good idea. Really hot filling in anything. You can't hot fill an empanada, you can't hot fill a dumpling, you can't hot fill pasta. So like, if this is your filling and it's going into something else, you probably want it to chill. So I'm gonna pop this in the fridge until it is fully cool, not lukewarm, it needs to be fully cool. Pupusa filling and making can get a little bit messy, so I popped on an apron. I'm gonna add my mozzarella to my refried beans, gonna stir that in. You might need to use your hands to really get it incorporated. And now I'm gonna divide this into 4 portions. Just using my fingers, just cutting them. And then roll them into like a ball. And then you can pop them right in the same bowl, because then we're gonna put it back in the fridge to chill some more while we make our masa. Man, this smells so good. Can't wait till this gets all melty and gooey. If any balls look a little bigger than the other, just, pinch some from one, add it to the other. Our balls are balls, and they're equal. Off to the fridge. While the filling chills in the fridge, let's make our masa for the pupusas. In here, I have high quality masa harina. When you're starting to make this dough, I wouldn't just add the entire amount of water from the get-go. I would just add half of the amount of water and then increase it until you're at the perfect consistency. Adding a nice hefty, maybe a couple of pinches of salt. And then I'm using stiff fingers to kind of whisk everything together. So I'm looking to get everything moistened. And you see how there's a lot of dry spots of masa? That means that I need more water. I'm gonna add the rest of my water, stiff fingers. Some parts are clearly moistened really well, but there's still a lot that's dry. So I'm gonna give it a little knead to see how much better I can distribute the water throughout. But it still looks a little crumbly, so that means that I'm gonna need more water. It's really helpful to use your hand when mixing doughs like this, because it's really important that you feel the dough. That's how you know that it's hydrated enough or that you've added enough water. This is looking a lot better. I'm kneading it around. I want to make sure that there are no pockets of dry masa stuck to the bowl. So now let's do a test. You want to be able to take a lump of dough. It's moist, it's not sticking to my hand, it's leaving a very fine residue. And when I roll it into a ball and squish it in between my hands, there's minimal to almost no cracking along the edges. So that tells me that when I roll it out and try and fill it and press it together, it's less likely to crack because it's moist enough to stay together. At this point, we're gonna cover it and let the masa hydrate a little bit more. We're gonna let it rest for 10 minutes before portioning it and filling it up and then cooking them off. Make sure to keep your water close though, because after resting, as the masa soaks up more of that liquid, you might need another splash just to, keep it loosey-goosey and easy to form. While the masa rests, we're gonna make another filling. Here I have squash blossoms. So to clean these, you're gonna grab the bottom and then you're just gonna gently pull it off while gripping right underneath the stem. And then you'll see this come out. This is what you're removing from your zucchini blossom. Texturally, it's not great. It's a little gritty, and it kind of throws off what makes the zucchini blossom so spectacular, is that it has this delicate silkiness as soon as warmth hits it. And so you don't even need a knife for this filling. You're just gonna pull it apart into strips and then pop it in a bowl. And then we're gonna repeat with all of these. The reason you're pulling them apart is because when you pull queso Oaxaca apart, which is the cheese we're using in this pupusa, you do it in the same way. It's kind of like the best version of a cheese stick, and it has these strands that you just pull apart. Don't be scared about what you put in your pupusa. You can really put anything in there. There are just a couple of rules. You want to make sure that your pupusa filling is cold when you fill it, and you want to make sure it's not something too wet. If it's too wet, it's gonna make the pupusa feel a little gummy because of that extra moisture from the inside. It's not gonna cook properly. Look at how pretty that looks. We're gonna mix this with our queso Oaxaca. Just, fluff it up so you get the cheese distributed throughout. That already looks really good. Let's do this. So our masa's rested. We have our fillings made. Let's pupusa it up. All right, look at that. The dough feels really nice. Very light residue, no real stickiness. It feels really malleable. Squishing it out. It's feeling good. If at any point it feels like your dough's drying out or cracking too much and you don't feel like it needs enough water to add to the dough, all you need to do is moisten your hands and that's enough to reintroduce a little moisture into your dough. I'm going to eyeball 4 portions. We're gonna make 4 pupusas. We're gonna make 2 refried beans and 2 squash blossoms. So I just cut this into 4, and then I've got my first ball. So I roll it into a ball, and then I make a little divot in the center with my finger, and then with my thumb on the inside and my finger on the outside, I slowly start making that cavity larger. Just like that pottery class in Fort Greene that you started taking at the beginning of the new year, that you probably will stop taking by the end of February. So I got a nice looking pocket here, and then in we go with our filling. From here, you're gonna start knocking it against your hand, and that'll both help the filling settle into the bottom while raising the edges. And then when you have enough at the top to pinch it shut, and then you re-roll it into the ball until it seems fully sealed. And then from here, we're just gonna gently start pressing it into a disc. You're looking for around a 1/2 inch thick. That looks about right. And then just using the edge of your fingers, just pat the edge together to keep it all in check. Now, this is important to note. There are a lot of things that you want perfectly sealed, like a soup dumpling. You want perfectly sealed, because if you lose that liquid on the inside, you're losing all of the fun. This is not one of those things. If you see a little bit of filling peeking out through some cracks, that is totally okay, because as it cooks, some of the cheese is gonna seep out and crisp up against the pan, and that ends up becoming even crispier than the regular pupusa. So that is something that I always look for. So if I see a little bit seeping out, don't bother trying to pinch it shut. Don't bother trying to smooth it over with some more masa. It's perfect just the way it is. Cracks are okay. Let cracks live. There we go. So I'm popping this on a sheet tray lined with parchment and with a moist paper towel on top, just to keep that dough from drying out too much and cracking. So we got our other one, same deal. We're making our little masa vase or vase. And then same deal, knock it in, press it down. We're slowly bringing the top, sealing it, rolling it up, and then same deal. Press, pupusados. And now I'm gonna return the bean filling to the fridge for later pupusaing. So the other one was a filling that you could roll into the ball and just drop in. This is more of a dry filling, so you're like kind of stuffing it more, cramming it in there, but you still start the same way. So we're just gonna grab a handful, cram it in. And just when you think it can't take any more, just grab another little pinch and just go for it. Again, roll into a ball. I'm seeing little hints of cracking with this dough, which means that it's starting to dry out. So at this point, I'm just gonna wet my hands a bit for this final part. This crack is not too big. I might have moistened my dough just a bit too much. You can tell because of all the residue that's in my hands, but it'll be okay. So these little bits, some cheese will seep out and it's gonna get really nice and crispy. It just means we gotta be a little more delicate with it. You can pop that down right there. So I've got a 12-inch cast iron over medium heat. I preheated it so the pan is nice and hot. I'm gonna add enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan fully. And I'm gonna heat that oil up until it kind of shimmers and really glides along the surface of the cast iron. That's how you know your oil is sufficiently hot. Everyone's gonna be calling me Dr. Pupusito once we're done over here. Huh? DJ Pupusito? Huh? The oil feels hot, but before I commit fully, I'm just gonna give it a test. So I put the edge of my pupusa up against the oil, and it's not giving me that sizzle that I'm looking for. So I'm gonna give the oil a little bit more time. There we go. You hear that kind of sizzle? You're seeing more violent bubblage. Now I feel ready to commit. Pupusas down. Pupusa is such a fun word to say. You're looking for this gentle bubblage Anything that's like too crazy, the outside is gonna brown and cook too much before the inside gets warm enough. So you wanna kinda like, you wanna coast. You want it to take its time. You want it to get crisp. You want it to get warm throughout. This isn't a steak. You're not looking for hard sears, just like gentle. Ooh, these are some good looking pupusas. DJ Pupusito strikes again. For something like this, I'm looking for visual cues. I want the bottom to be crisp. And when you look along the side, you see as it cooks, it looks less raw. The actual masa changes shade. So when the bottom is crisp and golden brown and the cooked level looks like it's halfway through, that's when I like to flip to cook the other side. We're getting ready to flip. I'm gonna flip. Look at that. Nice and golden brown, crisp. DJ Pupusito. Huh? Look at that. Ooh, that is crisp. That's gonna be good. The main indicator that they're fully done is that you can see the filling starting to bubble out. That means that the inside is molten. Just like in Chef, that inside is molten. Anyone get that reference? I forgot the name of the chef. I was gonna say his name. What was his name? Jon Favreau. Jon frickin' Favreau. Ooh, nice and golden brown. I like to keep them on a rack instead of popping them on paper towels because that air circulation means that there's no steamage, and no steamage means no sogginess. So that will make sure that the top and bottom stay crisp. Immediately season them with a little bit of salt. And then I'm gonna grab my accoutrements for my pupusas. All right, pupusas, ready, curtido, on the plate, salsa verde, on the plate. I'm going to start with the classic, refried bean and cheese. I'm really excited. Oh, look at that. Solid pull. Gonna try some on its own. Pupusas are such a fun texture to eat because you get this really thin, crispy shell on the outside, and then you get to fluffy, tender masa, then you get to really flavorful refried beans, and then you get the same thing on the other side. And that's built really well. See how much filling there is in comparison to masa? That's what you're looking for. You know what I'm gonna say. DJ Pupusito strikes again. Let me get into the experiment. Oh yeah, look at that. Queso Oaxaca is an elite stretchy cheese. Cheese is really subtle and neutral, so it doesn't overpower or overshadow the squash blossoms. So squash blossoms have this really silky texture, but they have a hint of zucchini. So it's like you're getting zucchini and cheese in like a really chill, really milky, really stretchy way. Can't go wrong. I'm gonna spice it up with a little curtido and some salsa verde. The curtido adds just enough heat and acidity to really lift the pupusa. You definitely need the curtido to help cut it. And if you have the two of these, you can just pupusa and curtido all day long. Pupusas, huh? What a gift to the world. Thank you, El Salvador / Honduras. You can find this recipe and others on NYT Cooking. Spin the pupusa.